Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Tech Talk Education. My name is Dr. Heldman, and I want to continue going down the road talking about PowerShell. In this video, what I want to do is introduce you to Windows services, and then we want to see how we can stop and start those services from within Windows, but we can also use PowerShell to do the same work. So let's get started. This should be super informative and super helpful. So first things first, let's talk about what a Windows service is. We've talked about this before, but just to remake the point, a service is a piece of code that's designed to do some little tiny bit of work, very specific work for you. For example, the print spooler service is a service that handles nothing but print jobs that have been sent from your computer to the printer, and it spools the job. So if there were a bunch of jobs, it would spool them all one at a time and then print them all out. And the print spooler service in times past could hang. And so one of the great ways of troubleshooting printing was, which is terrible, nobody likes troubleshooting printers, but you could stop the print spooler service and restart it, and that would cure a myriad of ills. So that's the idea. So we've got these services. Now let's take a look at these services first. I want to show you those to you, and then we will come into PowerShell and take a look at this. So what I'm going to do is Win E, or flag E. That's the wrong keystroke. It's Win R. Win R brings up the run dialog. Win E brings up the Windows File Explorer. R for run, and I will type in the string services.msc. Microsoft, what does that stand for? Container Console. Services.msc. What that will do is it'll bring up a list of the services that are running on my computer. I'll center this on the screen, and I will enlarge it a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. And you can see all of the different services that are running on the computer here. I don't like this extended look very well, so I typically click this tab button, the tab for standard, and just looking at the standard view. Now here's the thing to know about services. They're in alphabetical order. You can see that I've got a million of them running on the computer here. And let's go down and see if we can find the print spooler service. So I'm looking for, there's print spooler right there. Now you notice that it says the service is running. It's automatic, which means that it's going to load every time the system boots. It's logging on with local system. And what you can do is you can right-click the service and you can say stop. You can say restart, which is what you would do with a print spooler if you had a clogged up job somehow. You could stop and start the print spooler service, and it would reset everything. It won't resend the job. They have to resend it. You could go to all tasks and do the same thing, or you could go to properties. Now the interesting thing about the properties sheet for this is that it's showing you what it's doing here. So it's starting this guy right here, spool service.exe. It's set to automatic, although you could set it to manual or disabled or delayed start. And then there's a description for it here. There's also some other information about the service. So that's what a service is. A service is a piece of code built for Windows in this case, that's doing a job. It's doing a specific job. You can start, stop, start, or start with a delay the service. Restarting often helps. And then you can look up through here and see that there are a bunch of different services. For example, Open SSH Authentication Agent is currently disabled. And that's the idea. That's the idea behind the services. Now let's go in here and let's take a look at PowerShell. So the first thing I'll do is clear the screen. And what we want to do is we want to learn about a certain service and see if there are ways that we can start it or stop it. Now I put this away a little bit too early. I want to go ahead and go back into services. And the one we want to mess with is called Windows Management Instrumentation. It's called WMI. The reason I'm selecting this service is because it's very important to you to understand how this works. So if I have a computer, now this is back in the old days, I've got a computer or I've got a router, switch, whatever, some piece of equipment, I could install, it would support what's called Simple Network Management Protocol, SNMP. And you could, most of the devices come equipped with the ability to use SNMP. And the idea was that you have an agent on the hardware device that can report back to a central console what's going on. So for example, if a switch had a port that went bad on it, SNMP could send that message back to the managing agent and say, hey, there's a problem here. And some of the software got so sophisticated that they could actually show the ports on the switch that were bad, and they would tag it with a red indicator or whatever. So that's SNMP, but now what we have is we have what's called Windows Management Instrumentation. This is sort of SNMP on steroids. It's not SNMP. It is not a TCP/IP protocol. What it is, though, is an invention of Microsoft called Windows Management Instrumentation. It's lovingly called WMI. And the idea here is that we can go out and we can get information about different things that are hooked into the Windows system. We can query those things for changes and do something. Now, you and I don't natively use WMI. WMI is in use inside the Windows system. So what I'm going to do is right-click and select Properties here. And I'm going to look and see, well, this is servicehost.exe. And so I want that name. And then we're going to go in here to PowerShell. And we're going to goof around with this Windows Management Instrumentation service and see what we can do with it. Okay, so now here I am in PowerShell. And I'm going to type in a command called get. And I'm going to get, and something's going to be different here. So I'm going to get WMI object. And again, these do not have to be caps like this. They're just going to show you these PowerShell commands in proper case. Like, and when I say proper case, I mean cap G here, cap W here, cap O here. It's all in proper case, so the first letter is capitalized. And we remember that it is a verb object, so we're going to get a WMI object. So let's see what we do now. Now we type in attack class. And I'm going to say that I want to look at win32_process and see what that looks like. Now they have it capitalized here. You don't really need that. It will work just fine without it. Boom, there we go. And there's WMI. So you can see that WMI's managing just a couple of things here, right? There's a lot going on in WMI. And so you could scroll up here through here and look and see what you've got. And the main thing that you might be interested in, I could use my page up key as well, and it's putting it into categories here. So if I come up here a little bit more, wow, there's a lot going on with WMI, right? So the idea here is that you're getting information out of WMI, and now you would look through here and you would figure out what it is that you wanted to deal with, and then you could deal with that particular item. And here's servicehost.exe right there. That's actually what's running WMI. Now, like SNMP, and again, this is not SNMP. WMI is seriously SNMP on steroids. The idea here is that you've got all of these different things that you're tracking, and they're providing you information. And so there is what's called the Common Information Model. The Common Information Model is CIM. And so all of these things in here are adhering to what's called the Common Information Model. Well, let's do a little bit more. So I'm going to clear the screen. Okay, so I retyped the command. I generated an error, and I'll show you what happened here. The error was right here. I had, and this evidently does need to be proper case. I had no idea. So root / cap C, cap I, cap M, cap V. So that V had to be capitalized. And so now Microsoft is disobeying its idea of everything can be either upper lowercase or proper case. That's fine. I just wanted to show you that I corrected that SimV2 to a capital V, and we run it, and boom, it creates all of this information. Now what it did was it went out and got all of the Win32 stuff that is running out there. It queried all this, and it's giving us different information about what's happening here. And you can see that it's very, very verbose. There's a lot going on here. But the salient point here is that I am not using services.msc. What I'm using is PowerShell to query WMI. All right, let's do one more thing. So I'll clear the screen here. And I want to get my IP address real quick so that I can figure out, I want to do this next command with you, and then we'll call it a day with this movie. So ipconfig/all is the command that you type into Windows. And what I'm interested in, I have a bunch of adapters on the system. I've got 3 adapters. So you can see Ethernet adapter 2 has nothing, it's disconnected. Ethernet 3 is disconnected, but Ethernet 4 has this address 10.0.0.242. So I want to write that down, and then I'm going to query that using PowerShell. All right, let me clear the screen. We'll give this a try. So I'm going to clear the screen, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to do a get sim class. I'm proper casing this now because I'm freaked out about, well, Microsoft says I can go lowercase, but I can't go lowercase everywhere. Anyway, it's not a big deal. You can normally, but in this case, it goofed up because that V was lowercase. And I'm going to tell it that I have a computer name here now. Now, the computer name is not going to be the NetBIOS name. I could put that in there. You remember that we match a NetBIOS name to an IP address, and I'll show that to you in a minute. We'll try querying by the name, but in this case, I'm going to type in my address, 10.0.0.242, and let's see what happens. Now, the reason this failed is because this particular command is trying to go out and remotely connect to a computer. But I'm trying to run this command on my local computer, so you can see here that I've done the 242. It errors out. I'll clear the screen. I went ahead and typed in my computer's name right there, and it times out, and it gives me the red error box. And that's because we're saying here we want to remotely connect to another computer that is on the network, and we want to query the devices. We want to query WIMI to get information about that computer. So WIMI would be very, very handy in a cybersecurity standpoint because you could connect to a computer and get the information off of it using PowerShell and querying WIMI. And this would be on a Windows computer, of course. All right, so let's try one other. I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. I'll show you another command that you can use that is working with WIMI. And this is saying get sim instance common information model. The class is going to be a Win32 operating system. So what we're doing is we're asking it to tell me what the operating system is on this computer. And we hit enter, and it comes back and says, oh, well, it's this serial number and this build number, and it's in Windows System 32. It doesn't bring back all of the information, like I don't have a registered user or an organization, but if I was querying machines on the Windows Active Directory network, I would get some more information here. So that's pretty cool. Now we can narrow up that command a little bit by just hitting up our up arrow. We don't really need this class operator here. We can just say CM instance like so, and it will return the same information. So we didn't really need the class designator there. And let's see if we can get some more information out of our system here. So we're going to say get the SIM instance common information model. The class is going to be a Win32 operating system, but now what we're doing is we're using the pipe key right here, and we're saying get all of the member types that are properties for this particular operating system. Now we're talking about my local operating system here, and I hit enter, and there's a bunch of stuff that we're tracking using WIMI inside the computer, and you can see that it brings back some very, very useful information. So that's the point. When we're using PowerShell, one of the things that we can do is we can query services. So you could get at services by doing a flag R, typing in services MSC, and it will bring up the services console. This is called a console. It's been around a long, long time in Microsoft. And then you can get information about the service that way. Or alternatively, in our case, what we did was we said, well, we want to use PowerShell to query a service, and we started digging into Windows Management Instrumentation. It's called WIMI, and the idea is that WIMI is keeping track of all of the components that are important to the machine. It's keeping track of all of those settings, and you can go grab those settings by using particular WIMI commands, and WIMI obeys what's called the Common Information Model. So everything is really laid out just thus and so. Now, why did they do that? Why did they do that using WIMI? Well, I want you to know that especially if you're starting to get into cybersecurity and you're learning about Windows, you've got to be really, really expert with the Windows operating system. I don't know if there is anybody that's actually 100% expert because it changes all the time. But the idea here is that WIMI is keeping track of various operating, settings inside a Windows infrastructure, inside a Windows computer, and so it's good to know about WIMI. So your next stop, if I were you, what I would do is I would go out and I would do a little bit of research and learn how WIMI works, why it's there, how it works, and then maybe explore some more commandlets that are designed in PowerShell specifically for WIMI. Now, if you like this video, please say that you like it and you want to subscribe and share it with your friends. I am trying to grow the channel. And also, you're welcome to leave comments. Comments are welcome. I applaud that. I've gotten some really very nice comments from you guys. Thank you very much. And I'm wishing you a very good day, and we'll talk to you in the next video.